Are your kids aiming for top Ivy League colleges? Are your kids aiming for top 1% scores in SAT or ACT? What is the biggest hurdle? English. To have a strong foundation in English, Test Prep Pundits presents long-term SAT, ACT English program with robust curriculum and experienced teachers. For grades 6 through 10, just $80 a month. Contact us, info@testpreppundits.com, or call us, 844-383-7844.
Fine diamond jewelry is now one click away. Maya Fine Jewels, a family legacy, manufacturing their own jewelry since 1975. Shop online for lab-certified diamond jewelry at Indian prices. Visit your trusted family jeweler, Maya Fine Jewels, at 1315 Oak Tree Road, Islin, New Jersey. Shop online at mayafinejewels.com.
On her big day, she decides how it's going to be.
Get ready to make way for the brides of India.
With Malabar Gold and Diamonds.
సిలికాన్ ఆంధ్ర మనబడి అమెరికాలో ఏసీఎస్ వాస్క్ గుర్తింపు పొందిన ఏకైక తెలుగు విద్యాలయం. మీ పిల్లలను 2021-2022 తరగతులలో చేర్పించండి. తరగతుల నమోదు ప్రారంభమైనది. సెప్టెంబర్ 11, 2021 నుండి తరగతులు ప్రారంభం. మనబడిలో చేర్పిద్దాం, తెలుగు భాష నేర్పిద్దాం. మరిన్ని వివరాలకు సంప్రదించండి manabadi.siliconandhra.org, info@manabadi.siliconandhra.org, 1844-626 బడి.
తెలంగాణ అమెరికా తెలుగు సంఘం టీటీఏ ఆధ్వర్యంలో న్యూ జెర్సీలోని కన్వెన్షన్ అండ్ ఎక్స్పో సెంటర్ లో మే 27, 28, 29, 2022 ఈ 3 రోజులు మెగా కన్వెన్షన్ నిర్వహించనున్నారు. ప్రముఖ వ్యాఖ్యాత సుమా కనకాలతో పాటు మరెందరో సినీ రాజకీయ ప్రముఖులు విచ్చేయనున్నారు. అంతేకాదు ప్రముఖ గాయని గాయకులతో ఎస్పీబీకి ఘన నివాళి, కప్రిసియో బ్యాండ్ మరియు వైవిధ్యభరితమైన ప్రత్యేక కార్యక్రమాలు ఆహుతులను అలరించనున్నాయి. ఆటలు పాటలతో సినీ తారలు, బుల్లితెర నటీనటులు, జానపద కళాకారులు అందరికీ ఇదే మా సాదర ఆహ్వానం. ఫర్ మోర్ డీటెయిల్స్ ప్లీజ్ విజిట్ www.tdaconvention.org.
Hire international teachers who are well trained in U.S. curriculum for just $20 an hour. Or for 2 students group, $15 an hour. We teach math, science, and English for elementary, middle, and high school. Contact info@Test Prep Pundits. Call at 844-383-7844.
A new wave in the Test Prep. Test Prep Pundits offer SAT, PSAT, ACT just for $499. With powerful teachers, with top 1%.
Tvasiatelugu ప్రేక్షకులందరికీ hello and welcome back to our talk show with experts. మనతో ఉన్నారు మన expert Emily Newman గారు. Emily, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And this program has been brought to you by the Test Prep Pundits. Test Prep Pundits are home to the top 1% scores. Congratulations to Gautam Mandala for achieving 1570 and Farah Khalil for 1540 in their scores. Join our free Saturday Christmas boot camp for middle and high schools on December 22nd and 23rd. Log on to their website for more details. This program has been supported by movers.com and Malabar Jewelers. All right, Emily, so we have an interesting topic for today. We were talking about immigration under Biden's administration, which has kind of been also been a roller coaster ride, I should say. But can we talk a little bit more about that? Because I think we do see our viewers having very strong opinions about whether it's pro or cons or whatever it is. So we just wanted to get a sense of, like, as an immigration lawyer, what is your take on it?
Yeah, I think that especially after the Trump administration and very anti-immigrant, we were expecting to see much more pro-immigrant out of the Biden administration, which I think from a foundational standpoint, he is pro-immigration. But some of the tactics he's taking with continuing Trump travel bans and adding a new one recently with this new variant that came out. We also have, not really relevant here, but the Remain in Mexico policy for asylum seekers. That is something that everyone bashed during the Trump administration, and now Biden is planning to do the exact same thing. We haven't really seen a lot of improvement in how USCIS is handling things.
Right.
Biden is waiting on Congress to come forward with some kind of immigration reform. If that doesn't happen, we'll have to see what Biden can do through executive order next year. But I think he's less pro-immigration than what everybody was expecting.
Emily, why do you think the narrative sounds so different? Because it seems like Biden is pretty much doing, like you said, what Trump was also doing. But providing maybe other explanations for it, I don't understand why there is such a difference in the tone of even people who are watching this. There was an outcry with the Trump administration, especially with the immigrants at the border who are waiting to get in, versus, what's happening now, which is, far worse about like having them remain in Mexico. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it has to do with the media and how they were so anti-Trump and, very pro-Obama, pro-Democrat. And so they give different headlines to talk about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about Remain in Mexico, it's a completely different. And if you remember kids in cages and all of that, that was also happening under Biden.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's so much related to just the media.
Yeah. And for some reason, I feel like I understand that immigration may not be a far up topic for them, but at the same time, I think the problems do still continue, which is kind of sad to see that it does continue under an administration that is supposed to stand up for the people, which is really sad. But I wanted to ask about a couple of other things as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Texas Service Center. I know, there's not one person who has anything good to say about the Texas Service Center, quite a bit. And then you said that there was some data that was obtained through a lawsuit that was filed against the center. So can you just please elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, I think everyone has been talking about the long processing times at Texas Service Center when it comes to not only these I-140 downgrades that were filed in EB3 in October 2020. We still have people with those pending. But the 485s that were filed in October 2020, why are those still pending? Well, through this lawsuit, the associate director of the Texas Service Center had to submit their data of what's going on at the Texas Service Center. And this is specifically for employment-based 485 applications. The Texas Service Center alone has 91,000 applications pending.
Okay.
And what really shocked me is 45,000 of those were filed before October 9th, 2020. So we haven't even gotten into the bulk of the October 2020 cases because most of those were filed towards the end of October.
Right.
So we are just into the very first week and there are still 45,000 applications pending. And, they are processing 1,300 a month. That's average for the Texas Service Center. So if you think about those 45,000, how long is it going to take for them to get to October 9th filings? 34 more months. That's 3 years if they're going at the rate that they're at. And then to get through all 91,000 that are pending there, that's 70 months. So that is why we are seeing such slow processing times there. They're processing 1,300 a month and they are just overwhelmed. They have too many applications. Why aren't they transferring them to other service centers? Transfer them to the National Benefits Center. That center's been doing great compared to the other ones, which typically the National Benefits Center has not processed employment-based applications until October 2020. or send them to the local field offices. They don't have to necessarily interview since they are still waiving those, but they have officers that are available who can actually review the files and get them done. So that's kind of what's going on with the Texas Service Center and why things are taking so long. They just have a ton of applications and they're not going to be getting through them anytime soon.
Right. And this has been sort of an ongoing theme, right, for very many years, or has it been a more, sort of a recent issue that's been combined?
Yeah, processing times kind of improve and decline over the years. If you go back and read old posts from the American Immigration Lawyers Association, they talk about the backlog of cases 10 years ago and that these processing times were really long back then. And they've been trying to get through all of these for so long, and they were actually doing pretty well at improving processing times, but they also don't have a way to increase the number of officers quickly and ramp up when there's a surge of applications. And that's what problem we're having right now, is they just kind of move officers around and shuffle people around to where the biggest need is, and then processing times everywhere else start to increase. And then they move people around again, those processing times get better, but then the other ones get worse.
Got it. I guess sometimes we sort of get, a siloed view because we're thinking immigration only, but like you mentioned, they have to shuffle people around based on where the need is. And that's something we don't often get to hear or even understand, that there is a possibility for that to happen, which may change the dynamics. So thank you for that, Emily. Mm-hmm. Also, I wanted to ask you about how are the consulates impacting the visa bulletin?
Yes, so I think everyone probably knows that Charlie, the head of the visa chief at Department of State who puts out the visa bulletin, is retired. Last week was his last week. We still don't know who's going to be replacing him, but he did put out a one last check-in with the American Immigration Lawyers Association. And he gave an update of kind of what's happening right now. And I think what we need to be aware of as employment-based applicants is normally most employment-based applicants go through adjustment of status. So their applications are filed with USCIS. USCIS uses up most of the available visa numbers. But because people got stuck outside the U.S., and they continue to be stuck there, more and more people have actually chosen to consular process their green cards in the employment-based category. So looking at the number usage by the consulates in the month of October of 2021, they used more than they've ever used before for employment-based. That means if that continues, because we have all this pent-up demand when consulates weren't processing applications, they're going to use up a lot more of the green cards than they ever have before, which means less for USCIS. So that could really impact the ability of EB2 to move, especially when we have people from the rest of world countries. More and more of them might use up the additional green cards in the EB2 category that normally would spill across to India because they go unused. We may see fewer spilling across to India. And also, with the visa bulletin, what they're trying to do, why they moved EB2 forward a little bit faster, was to try to generate cases because they don't know how many people are going to jump from EB3 back into EB2. So they pushed those to allow more people to file in October, November, and December. But the EB2 forward movement is going to kind of slow down until they see how many cases actually materialized from what has been filed. So they may, in April, we may see one more push of the dates forward, depending on how much was actually generated by this current visa bulletin that we have. It's just everything lags. They're so far behind in gathering the data from these applications that it takes them 4 months to figure out, okay, are we on track? Are we going to use up the green cards too soon and run out before the end of the year where we have to retrogress things? Or do we need to speed things up so that more people can file so we don't run out of time before the end of the fiscal year and not approve enough applications?
Right. Wow. Okay. All right. That's Yeah, that's a lot to process. Thank you. All right, Emily. Let's take our callers and our questions from the live chat as well. All right, on to our first caller with phone number ending in 9929. We're ready for you now. Caller with phone number ending in 9929.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hi. Thank you guys for support for all these things. Yeah. So I have one question, like to Emily. Emily, I have a I-140 approved, but the priority date is just 2021 June. Now, if I have an opportunity for Canada, so do you think it would be better to move there, or just stick to the I-140 and work out the things over here?
Well, obviously, if there's no immigration reform, we know it's going to take a long time for the priority date to get to June 2021 when we're still in 2012 right now. So we have a long way to go. What I think part of the issue is if you were to move to Canada in the meantime, what will happen to your approved I-140? Will that job offer remain available to you to where when the date is about to become current, you'll be able to come back on H-1B and then just file the 485? Or are you going to be losing that job offer and you're just retaining your priority date at this time? And then if you move to Canada, you need to come back to the U.S. sooner by filing to get into H-1B status. Give yourself enough time because you're going to need a new perm and new I-140, court the priority date, and then be able to file. So we do have a number of people that have sought job opportunities outside the U.S. Because the delay is so long and have come back, but sometimes we don't have a lot of advance warning on when the dates will be available. So a lot of people were caught off guard in October of 2020 and were outside the U.S. and not able to file. So those are some of the considerations to make. Yes, you can do it, but figuring out when to come back, how to come back, and then whether you're going to need a new labor certification at that time are all things to think about.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling in. All right, let's take our next caller. And in the meantime, Emily, I have a question for you. This is from Vamshi Krishna. Says, my H4 EAD A number is different from the A number which is on the 485 receipt. Now I'm applying for H4 EAD renewal and I'm confused as to which A number I need to use in the application.
Gotcha. Yeah, the H4 EAD A number is a temporary A number. The one that's on the 485 is the real actual A number. Honestly, in the application, I don't think it matters. What I would probably do is stick to the one that's already on the EAD card, the H4 EAD card, just so that there's no confusion and they don't slow down the process of it because they have to figure out how to match that application up with the prior EAD approval. So I'd probably keep the same H4 EAD A number.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Let's take our next caller. Caller with phone number ending in 1616. We're ready for you.
Hi, Emily. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, Emily. I have 3 quick questions, straightforward ones. Right now, I'm with one employer doing 2 projects for 2 clients. And then one of the client is offering me a full-time. So I'm planning to move to GC EAD. I got my EADs and 140 approved. Okay. I have 2 problems. First problem is the old employer is not ready to give me a 140 approval notice. I know that we could do a FOIA, but is there any other way I could get an approval notice other than directly from my employer if he's not willing to give?
Only from the employer or FOIA.
Sorry?
Only from the employer or through the FOIA.
Okay, but that doesn't give the actual approval notice, right? It gives the whole 140 application, right? The FOIA.
Right, but you don't need the approval notice if you have the I-140 application because it's stamped with the priority date, it's stamped approved, it has all of the information.
Okay. Next question is, last week I asked you one similar question. So if the new employer does the 485J, am I losing the connection with the old employer? Because I'll be doing these 2 projects with the new employer and the old employers, just that I'll be taking one more.
Yeah, you're still authorized to work for both employers, but by submitting the supplement J, you're taking the green card with you to the new employer. So the old employer is no longer needed to support that 485.
Okay. So the last question is, if there is a contract I signed like 1 year ago saying that I'll not go to the client 6 months after joining or something like that. So now after 1 year, can they enforce it?
It depends on the terms of the contract and is more of an employment law question rather than an immigration question. So you may have to have that reviewed by an employment law attorney.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling. All right, let's take our next caller, and I have a question for you, Emily, from Satya. Says, I downgraded I-140 last year in October of 2020. My company lawyer filed it as an amended petition. Now got my EB3 I-140 REF, or he says REF, but I don't know if it's RFE or REF. If we withdrew the EB3 I-140 now, will there be any effect on my previously approved EB2?
There should not be, and especially if this RFE is something that could ultimately end up in a denial, withdrawing is going to be a better option, because a denial definitely you would lose both the EB2 and the EB3 because it was filed as an amendment. But a withdrawal should not impact the EB2 approval.
Got it. Thank you. All right, let's take our next caller. Caller with phone number ending in 8892. We're ready for you now. Caller number ending.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hi. Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Nitya and Emily. Thanks for taking my call. I just have a quick question. So I received my green card like in September of 2021. The question I have is not related to immigration, but something related to naturalization. Maybe it might be too early to ask, but the question is, my accounts got recently hacked. Like, I mean, my crypto accounts, and the money has been stolen from it, and I got an email from hackers saying, pay me this much amount, right? So my question to you is, if I go ahead and open a police complaint talking about like what happened to me, will that be some issue during naturalization verification process?
I'm so sorry that happened to you, but no, it will not have any impact on the naturalization. They're more concerned about if you had committed a crime. That's what they're looking into. But if you file a police report because you were the victim of a crime, no issues at all.
Okay, so I'm safe to just go ahead and open a complaint or report with police, right, about this?
Yes, yes.
And also, I mean, are we required for any hacking and if the money is stolen from our account? I mean, am I legally? I mean, should I be legally informing them, or I can just take the loss and just, not worry about it? Just curious.
You're not required to report a crime. It's up to you. Your choice.
Okay. So if something happens to my accounts, if the hacker trades, makes some weird, some kind of transactions, which it might, will that end up me in trouble? Like if they make any unauthorized transactions from my account, if it happens to be a big issue down the road, will I be liable, like, hey, why did you not report this to the concerned authorities? Now you are liable for it. You are an accomplice or something like that. Could that be something that could happen?
No, I don't see that happening. But I think we can get to another caller now.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling. All right. Let's get our next caller on board. And there's a question from Janwar Harish. He says, can you throw some light on how EB3 India would progress in the coming months? I think you kind of mentioned that briefly when we were talking about the visa bulletin as well. He has a September 2014 priority date. When can I expect my FAD to be current realistically, given nothing changes in the new bill or legislation?
Yeah, definitely would not expect that anytime before October of 2022. And it may be even another year after that, because for when the October 2022 visa bulletin comes out, that's going to be back to the normal 140,000 green cards that we normally have, assuming there's not a lot of family spillover compared to before. So it will be a while. I would say probably 2 years, if not longer.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. Let's take our next caller. Caller with phone number ending in 7737. We're ready for you now? 7737.
Hi, Emily and Nitya Garu. Can you hear me?
Hello, ma'am. Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. thanks for everything you guys are doing for our community and for helping us. And I have a question. Like once I get EAD, until I get the green card, can I continue to work with my employer as well? Can I get a second job with another employer on EAD card?
Yes.
Just
So
to
once you have,
maintain
once you have that EAD, you could work for multiple employers if you wanted to. So you want to make sure that your green card process continues by staying with your current employer or moving the green card with you to the new employer. But if you want to add a second employer, you can do that once you have the EAD, and it has zero impact on the green card process because you're staying with the first employer as well.
So once I get the second job on EAD with the second employer, still H-1B is valid with my old employer if I continue to work with him?
No, it's one or the other. So if you use the EAD from your green card process, then you are no longer in H-1B status, and you'd be using the EAD for both employers. So if you want to continue your H-1B instead, you would have the second employer file a concurrent H-1B to allow you to work for both companies at the same time. But using the EAD, once that happens, you're no longer in H-1B.
Got it. I have a second question. I know it's, I don't think so I can ask because no one has a crystal ball in their hand, but still I would like to ask, like, if my priority date is May 2014, how many years do I need to wait to get EAD or green card?
May 2014 in EB2 or EB3?
EB2.
EB2. Well, I would not expect it anytime in this fiscal year because we're only going to make it till probably 2013 by the end of September next year. It may be another year or more after that because, again, we're down to these lower green card numbers. We really just can't predict because, again, we also don't know how many EB3 are jumping back into EB2. That's another thing that we need to watch.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for calling. Let's take our next caller. And Emily, I have a question for you. This is from Star. Says, hold on. USCIS is tweeting that EB green cards prioritized. Are you seeing any improvement in the approval rates? I applied for my 485 in November of 2020. Do you have any idea when they would approve my EAD advance parole? Because my priority date retrogressed.
So if it's Texas Service Center, those, as we talked about at the beginning, they're really not improving at all. They're getting through about 1,300 applications a month. With the other service centers, we are seeing some faster processing times of the EADs and APs, probably still in the 6 to 10 month range. And then as far as the 485, we've been consistently getting 485 approvals from the National Benefits Center for cases that were filed in October of 2020. Those it really depends on where it's pending at. Things are slightly better, but not a whole lot better.
Okay. All right, let's take a caller with the phone number ending in 8692. We're ready for you. Please press *6 to unmute your line, Ali. 8692, number ending in 8692. We're ready for you. Please press *6 to unmute your line. Hello?
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, we can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
So I have a question. I have EB2 approved in May of 2010. It was under the National Interest Waiver. And I'm a physician, so one of the stipulations is to do 5 years service in underserved areas. And I've done so far 4 years, so my priority date is current. So my question is, if I applied for I-485, can I live in U.S. Without having any other non-immigrant visa status?
Yes, once the 485 is filed, you can rely on the adjustment of status to keep you in what we call lawful presence. But you do need, if you're going to work, you do need either a non-immigrant visa that allows you to work or an EAD to work, which those EADs are taking probably 6 to 10 months to process. But in terms of status, you can remain in just adjustment of status after you file.
Okay. And then a follow-up question is, so say I get an EAD through this process. Again, could I just have a, self-employed private practice using this EAD in an underserved area? Will it count towards the NIW 5-year service requirement?
I could not answer that question for you. I'm not super familiar with the NIW process. I know that you do have to complete the 5 years before they will approve the 485, even if your priority date is current, but I am not 100% certain if self-employment is an option for that.
I see. Okay. That's all. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for calling. All right. Let's take our next caller. Your next question, Emily, is from Raju. He says, I'm changing my status from H-1B to my I-485 EAD. Can I work only part-time using my 485 EAD until I get my green card? Once I get my green card, I plan to work full-time.
I think the technical answer is yes, because that EAD allows you to work, in any job for any employer, any type of employment, but it could raise questions regarding whether you do intend to work in the position that you were sponsored for once you receive the green card. And, I think there's some risk there. I'm not a huge fan of that plan.
I guess I would say, switch to part-time once you get your green card. Relax a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take our next caller. Caller with phone number ending in 4954. We're ready for you now. Please press *6 to unmute your line. Number ending in 4954. *6 indeed, unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Vishnu. I have a question. I have actually two questions. First one is, currently I dropped my H1 and working in EAD, and I filed my EAD extension, but it's not yet approved. My EAD will expire on January, and after that I heard I will get 6 months extension. If current processing time, it seems it will go beyond the 6 months. What I can do to expedite this EAD? Otherwise, I can't work because I don't have even H1B now.
Right. Yeah, and that is definitely a risk that people are going to be coming up against with these long processing times. And that 180 days of the automatic extension does stop at day 180. In terms of expediting the process, right now, expedites are almost always being denied, even if your reason for expediting is severe financial harm because you can't work once you hit that 180-day limit. But they just don't have the capacity to expedite everyone, so they just don't expedite anyone. Beyond the actual normal expedite process where you call the 1-800 customer service number, litigation would be the next option to try to get that approved more quickly.
Okay. So my next question is, my company A filed for my 485. After that, I moved 2 companies with the EAD, and still I haven't filed my 485J. What's the best time to file 485J?
You can do it at any time. It's fine that you have not done it yet. If there's a request for evidence, you definitely have to do it. And if you're called in for an interview, you definitely have to do it. There's kind of 2 schools of thought on it. Some attorneys say, you know what, just wait for the RFE or wait for the interview. There's no reason to do it in advance. Other attorneys say it's best to get it out of the way once you join the company, but there's really no right or wrong answer to that.
Okay. So it's okay to not to file now and later too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling. Let's take our next caller, and I have a question for you, Emily. This is from Swami Vishwanath. He says, Do we need to file an amendment for H-1B if I'm moving to a different state, working from home, no other change in job or responsibilities?
Yes, that does require a new LCA because the metropolitan statistical area where you're working is going to change. And whenever you need a new LCA, it now requires an amendment to be filed under the matter of SIMEO guidance.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Emily. Let's take a caller with the number ending in 5321. We ready for you? Number ending in 5321.
Hi. Hi, this is Anand. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Anand, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, my priority date is July 2014, and I have I-485 pending along with I-140 approved in both EB2 and EB3, and I recently received my I-485 EAD as well. I have a job offer with employer B, but this employer B has no previous records of GC filing before, and so far only 3 H-1B have been filed by them. But this company is run by one of my close friend or the close friend of my family, and we wanted to take your opinion to understand if there are any risks in I-485J if I move to employer B.
So there's no requirement that they have a track record with immigration. So the fact that they haven't filed for green cards for other people in the past is not a problem at all. As long what they're looking for with the supplement J is the job similar to the job that you were sponsored for, and is the business a legitimate business? So assuming that both of those are met, then no problem at all.
Thank you. Thanks for answering my question. This has answered my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling. Let's take our next caller. Let's put the one mute. Okay. Emily, this is a question from Ravi Kumar. He says, applied for my EB3 downgrade with an I-485 in August of 2021, biometrics done. EB3 I-140 is still pending. No EAD or advance parole yet. EB2 priority date is Feb of 2012 and is current in December VB. Should I interfile or refile the I-485 with EB2?
Yeah, great question. That is the question everybody has on their minds these days is it better to interfile or refile?
Refile, yeah.
And there's really no way to know which one is ultimately going to be best. We know that both have some positives and both have some negatives. So with refiling, you have to pay all the fees again, and you go in the back of the line in terms of processing times. You have to do the medical again. But the benefit of refiling is you might end up at a different service center, especially if you're stuck in the Texas service center. You know, if you end up at the National Benefits Center, those processing times have been faster. So it may actually work out to be faster. At the same time, refiling doesn't guarantee that the two applications will be processed separately. It's possible that if your second application ends up at the National Benefits Center, they could transfer it to the Texas Service Center and look at both of those files together. And we don't have any way of knowing when they're going to do that or if they're going to do that. It seems to be very inconsistent. In terms of interfiling, the benefit of interfiling is you're not paying any fees again, your medical is good, you don't have to do anything over again. The downside is there's no way to know when it's accepted. For that, you do need to wait until the final action date is current, so you would not be able to do it yet. But it often requires a lot of follow-up and sending it in again and again because there's no formal process for it. So both have their problems, both have their benefits. You just got to choose one, and no one can answer which one's best right now.
Right. But what would Emily do?
What would Emily do? I would probably refile because I have the option of getting out of the Texas Service Center and to the National Benefits Center, especially if I was stuck in Texas. And I think that it just gives you more options because with the interfile, if EB3 starts moving faster again, well, now you're stuck in EB2, and it's really they're really not going to let you transfer the category twice. because it's up to their discretion. So I would probably lean towards a second filing.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Let's take our next caller. Caller with number ending in 9623. We're ready for you. 9623. Hello?
Hi, Nitya. Can you hear me?
Hi, ma'am. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi. Okay. Hi, Nitya, and hi, Emily. Thank you for taking my call. I have a very tricky situation. We had I have my own, I was on my own H-1B and my husband has his own. So my priority date was June of 2010. So we decided to downgrade in the month of October 2020 and we filed it. So it went to the Texas Service Center. We got our EAD and AP, but nothing has happened. We also filed our medicals. So after waiting for 1 year, so last month, in the month of November, we filed a fresh 485 with my husband as primary, and it went to the NBC, and within a week we got our receipts. But we got a notice saying that our underlying 485 is transferred to the KFC. So now we are confused. We were trying to avoid the Texas Service Center, but now we are back to the Texas Service Center. What would happen to our situation? Is there any way that we could speed up? The reason why we were trying to speed up the whole process is because of my daughter. She was pursuing the medicine, and the only way that she could pursue was if she had green card. But nothing seems to be working for our case.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really see an option to get it moved out of the Texas Service Center. It's totally up to USCIS where they send these files. And we have no power or control to change that. And we've already done a second filing in an effort to get out of that service center. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any options.
So what was the reason for the National Benefit Center to transfer the case? That was very confusing because first of all, when they sent the receipt notice, we were surprised to see my receipt had my priority date and not my husband. That itself surprised us. Why did they put my priority date when I was filed as a derivative of my husband?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's unusual because normally they assign the priority date based on the I-140 approval that is submitted with the 485. So I don't know how they would have a way of knowing that you had a different priority date. As in terms of why they chose to transfer it, they do that. Generally, they can do that when they see that there are two applications pending, they supposedly for more efficient processing, so that they can look at them both, whoever the officer is can review both at the same time to make sure there's no inconsistencies between the two filings. But they don't do it in every case. And in most of the cases, I've not seen them transferring it. So unfortunately, yours is just one of the ones that did.
So will they still process the EAD and the AP in the MSC because that wasn't transferred? We only got the 485 transfer notices.
Yeah, if you didn't get a transfer notice for the EAD and AP, then those will remain at the National Benefit Center.
Okay. And one last question.
Let's try to give the others a turn as well. There's so many callers waiting. We do try to limit the questions to 2 per person. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling. Let's take our next caller, Randy. Meantime, I have a question, Emily, for you. This is from our user Hawaiian Islands. Says, I'm working in a US on an H1. My senior mother lives in India. She has a US tourist visa. When can she travel to visit me? She has not traveled to the US in over 3 years.
Yeah, since she has the visa, assuming that she has been vaccinated and her vaccination meets the requirements that the CDC set out and she has a negative test, she can visit anytime now. There's no restrictions on that. Right.
Okay. Thank you. Let's take our caller with phone number ending in 3136. We're ready for you.
Hi, Emily. Hi, Nitya. Hi, this is Krishna. So Emily, I have applied for my I-140 in premium processing. My max out date is July 2022, and I have to go to India in April 2022, and have to go for visa stamping. Can I now file my DS-160 with current I-797 number that I have and book appointment? And when I go to the interview, can I take the new I-797 that I will get after applying for extension with my new I-140? I'm planning to apply even the extension also in premium. So the reason why I want to do early is because of the visa slots actually. So you know, right? Like I will not get them sooner. Like once I apply for the extension, and then again.
I think you could try to do it, but it may make things worse. The reason for that is when you submit that DS-160 with the particular receipt number associated with it, the consular officer reviews that petition to prepare for the interview. And so then when you show up to the interview with a different approval notice, they may not have access to it yet. Their PIM system, they have to wait until things get uploaded into there. At the Kentucky Consular Center, and they may end up just giving you a 221G and saying, we need time to look into this, so we're going to use administrative processing because we don't have access to this file. So I think it might end up shooting yourself in the foot a little bit to get the interview and then not to be able to get the visa because they don't have access to the right file.
Okay. So is there any way I can edit that? No, right? Once I book the interview, I'll not be able to edit that DS-160, right?
Correct.
The form.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's the question I have. And Emily, like one more question. Like I was listening to all the talk now regarding the Texas Center, the I-140 crossing, crossings are taking time. Like it's not with my I-140 would be, right? Like I have already applied for premium and money got deducted from my account. So I thought they would proceed with my premium processing.
Well, if you filed with the original labor certification, if this was based on a new perm, you should not be impacted by those issues.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you. Like I just came to know about these now. Okay, thank you. So
Thank you for calling. Yeah. All right. Let's take our next caller, and in the meantime, we have. 1 second, guys. Okay. Yeah. Let's get them on mute. All right. This is a question from Srini Mupala. Says, I'm planning to relocate to Texas within the same company and same role. Does my employer need to refile the perm due to location change? My green card adjustment of status is not filed yet. So he has, that's his question, sorry.
Okay, so when the 485 is not filed, then we need to look at, does the job offer that the perm is sponsored for continue to exist? So is this a temporary move to where you'll go back to the original location at the time you receive your green card? Or is this a permanent move where you're never going to work at that location again? So if it's a permanent move and there's no way for you to go back to that previous work location, then a new perm is required because that labor certification is only valid for the labor market tested in that area, and it needs to be valid for your actual work location. If there's a possibility where you can go back to that original work location, then it's not necessary for a new perm to be filed.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you, Emily. Let's take our caller with the phone number ending in 6640. We're ready for you now. Please press *6 to unmute your line. Caller with phone number ending in 6640. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Hi, Emily. I actually have a two-question. And one question, like I'm on an H-1B visa right now, and I just got an extension for 3 years, like a few months ago. And my question is, if I have exhausted most of my like a personal time off, and if I had to take some extra time off in next couple of months, and if I decide to like take voluntary unpaid leave for 1 day to 2 days a week for a couple of weeks, would that be a problem?
Well, I think if it's a weekly thing, it may require an amendment to be filed because that's not really what you would consider to be what you use paid time off for. So I think there's some risk there because if the company does not pay the amount that's listed on the labor certification and on the I-129 petition, they could be found to have violated the LCA regulations and have to pay back wages and possibly be fined. So it would be the company that would need to look into whether that is acceptable. Having it be a weekly thing seems like it may be something that needs an amendment to be filed so that they can have the salary reduction without getting fined or having any LCA violations.
But if it's like, let's say like a 3 to 4 weeks, and we're talking about like altogether like a 10 days altogether, and like for example, this is a December and it's end of the year, and if I have already made the salary requirement already throughout the year, and then if I have
the
even
salary
if I take a couple of days
requirement
off,
has to be equal every pay period. You can't like overpay for 6 months and then underpay for 6 months. So that's not relevant. As far as options to do that, I mean, the Department of Labor is very concerned about these situations. Is it truly voluntary? Are you being benched without pay and they're telling you that you need to take this as a voluntary unpaid leave, or is it actually unpaid leave? So there's some risk there to the company, even if it is something that you're volunteering for.
yeah, and it's just I was thinking like I would do 4 to 5 weeks and a day or two, so altogether it would be out of like a 10 days on and off, and that was it because I was kind of exhausted most of my time, and I might need to take some time off. And if I figure like if I take 1 to 2 days, it's not like a routine thing; it's just occasional. But it would be like 3 to 4 weeks, and that's it. After that, I would just go back to again. We'll go back to the working 40 hours.
Yeah, your employer should definitely talk to their immigration attorney about whether that's a good idea to do without filing an amendment.
Okay. And how about Emily? If I
let's try to give some of the other callers a turn as well, sir. Let's try to give some of the other callers a turn as well. Yeah. All right. Let's take our next caller. And Emily, I have a two-part question. This is from Murli D. I'll read out the first part. He says, 485 is pending at Texas Service Center, pending downgrade. Applied for my new 485 using spouse I-140. Straight case, NBC transferred the 485 to Texas. What would happen now? He says, should I withdraw mine with pending downgrade? Rejected PP 8 times. What is PP?
Premium processing for that.
Oh, sorry.
Downgrade. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was like, what is that? All right. Got EAD and AP. Got social security card for the kid. Can I use the social security card if I decide not to use this EAD?
Well, the social security card can be used. It's not something that is relevant to the EAD. So if the child needs a social security number to be able to apply to a certain school or something like that, no problem using that social security number, even though they're not using the EAD. In terms of withdrawing, I don't see how that provides any benefit because the case has already been transferred. It's not like they're going to transfer it back to the National Benefit Center because you no longer have the Texas case pending. They're just going to keep it at Texas.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't see much benefit to doing that.
All right. Let's take our caller with phone number ending in 9206. We're ready for you. Caller with phone number ending in 9206. Please press *6 to unmute your line. *6.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Nithya. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. So I have a question. I would like to know what Emily would do in this scenario. So right now my EB3 I-140 has been approved, and then 485 has been applied back in November 2020. And recently they have transferred my case from Nebraska to what is that, National Benefit Center, and then now they said that they are planning to schedule an interview for me. So meanwhile, but my priority date is October 2012. If you look at my EB3 final priority action date, right now it is not current. But I've been following Rahul and all his videos. So the thing is that right now my priority date is not in the final action date, but I've been getting this interview scheduled by National Benefit Center. So even though if I finish my interview, I'm doubting if I would get a green card because it is not listed in the final action date. So on the other side, I'm also refiling on EB2. So now question is like, do I have to continue to go with EB2? Because in EB2, I will be current in next 2 visa bulletins. So what would you do, Emily?
Well, you're already planning on refiling in EB2. And the EB3, you can just let that continue. If you get called in for an interview, just go in for the interview, and then they'll just keep the case on hold while they wait for the final action date to become current. But they'll continue to process the EB2 application, and as long as that final action date is current, they may be able to approve, or it's possible they may even transfer the EB2 filing to the local office where your EB3 filing is pending. Yeah, I don't see a downside to refiling, so that you have those, both EB2 and EB3 options.
So what I was thinking is like, anyway, I'm getting interview scheduled. So wait for 1 or 2 days after the interview schedule and see if they will approve. But
they
Rahul,
can't approve
I
it
don't
if the
think
date's not
will.
current.
Yeah, and it is not legal for them to approve. That's what I heard from Rahul. Okay. So you want me to continue with the refile? That's what you're saying, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling, Andy. Let's take our next caller. And I have a question from Sweet Seller. Says, can refiling be done when dates are current on filing chart only? What are the disadvantages if done with filing dates? Says also, how is Charlie counting upgrades when he says the EB2 might slow down? EB2 final action dates are 4 months apart with EB3. Are there too many upgrades in these 4 months to slow down the EB2?
Okay. As far as the visa bulletin, we really won't know whether they're going to be, how these EB3 upgrades are going to impact EB2 until probably April, because of the time lag and waiting to see the data as it comes in from USCIS in terms of how many applications move from EB3 into EB2. And now I forgot what the first half of the question was.
He says, can refiling be done when dates are current on the filing chart only? What are the disadvantages if done with filing dates?
Gotcha. Yeah. So refiling, when they do allow us to use the filing date chart, you can refile when that date is current. Interfiling is the one that requires the final action date to be current. The benefit of refiling when under the filing date chart is it allows all of the preliminary processing to be done by USCIS so that when the final action date finally becomes current, they're ready to approve the application. That's the main reason that they started allowing adjustment of status applications to use these dates of filing, is so USCIS can get all the stuff done and be ready to approve when the final action date is current. So if you wait until your final action date is current and then file, then you've lost the time that it could have been processed before the final action date became current.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Let's take our next caller, Andy. Caller with phone number ending in 7189. We're ready for you now. Caller with phone number ending in 7189. Please press *6 to unmute your line. *6 to unmute your line.
Hi, Nitya. This is Santosh. Can you hear me?
Yes, Santosh. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Hi, I have a question regarding the passport. Basically, I don't have a last name in Indian passport. So when I entered the US, so from last 5 years, my first name has become the last name in the US. So all my immigration documents have been my I-140 and everything, or based on that name. So in Indian passport, I have only first name, but when it comes to US, it become like an FNU, and my first name become as the last name in all my I-140 and I-94 and everything. So I just called regarding because one of my friends suggested you can split your name. And luckily I have an extension pending in next 6 months, and even my passport expired. So I just want to check if I split my name, so is it good to go ahead, because all my I-140 and my immigration documents are in with FNU. So if I change today, split my name, for example, put like first name as Santosh Kumar and last name as Reddy, so will that impact my I-140? Because at least I can do the extension, but what happens with my I-140? So I just checked with this issue. So
Yeah, no issue at all. No issue at all for your I-140 or for filing the 485 or your labor certification. Once you do have the name split, whenever you file your next H-1B extension, you would use the name that's listed how it is on your new passport. And so then everything going forward would have the name split. But it's fine that the prior documents don't have that split, and you don't have to do anything to change your name on the I-140 approval or the labor approval.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling, Andy. All right, let's take our next caller. And in the meantime, Emily, I have a question for you. This is from RK. Says green card was filed by company A, and this year company B acquires company A. Also, B is doing the H-1B amendment now. Do we need to apply for a new perm for green card?
It depends. If the acquisition was done in a way that company B qualifies as what we call a successor in interest, then the perm remains valid, but an I-140 amendment is required to document the successor in interest relationship and to show that the acquiring company has the ability to pay the salary. But if it doesn't qualify as a successor in interest, they'll treat it as a completely separate company. And in that situation, it does require a new perm.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Emily. Let's take our next caller. Caller with the phone number ending in 9804. Caller with the number ending in 9804. We're ready for you now. Please press *6 to unmute your line.
Oh, yeah. Hi, ma'am. This is Venkat from North Carolina.
Hi, Venkat Garu. Please go ahead.
Yeah. My question is like this year when I applied for a H1 extension, I came to know like I'm subject to cap because of my previous cap is revoked. So I'm subject to cap, and I did not have the sufficient time for apply for the new cap. So I applied for F1 change of status. And after that, I have not yet received the F1 change of status. But meanwhile, I got selected from the fiscal year 2022 H1. So again, I have applied for the H1 change of status. It's like kind of a bridge petition. F1 change of status is not received, but I have applied for the H1 change of status. My question is, if I receive the H1 approval without I-94, can I report to client and go for stamping? That means like the client who is supporting me, like if they want to, like if I want to hold the position, I need to I have to like join and go for stamping. I saw online like I can work on 797B if I have I-140 approval.
No, if there's no I-94 on your H-1B approval, then you're not authorized to work. So just because you have the I-140 approval is not relevant. You need the actual I-94, which gives you the change of status to start working.
Or can't even at least I can inform them like I got a 797B and I'm going for stamping and come back. Just like joining, not for working, at least to report, because they cannot hold the position long time like that.
That's up to their internal processes, whether they will accept that for you to take that job is really up to them. But in terms of immigration, you're not authorized to work. So if they can't do an I-9, they may not accept that I-797 without the I-94.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but blocks I have seen like I can work, but I cannot stay with this 797B. But I can work with I-140 upload.
No, definitely not.
I got. Oh,
no.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thanks, ma'am. This is what I need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling. All right. All right, folks. I know we have a ton of people waiting and a ton of people on the live chat as well, posting a lot of questions. But unfortunately, we're all out of time today. Emily, thank you so much for being on the show today and for answering a lot of questions about what would Emily do. So, so I appreciate your help in, in providing a lot of answers to the people in the community who are looking for some solid help with immigration. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And to all our viewers, we'll be back same time, same place next week. So stay tuned and come back with your questions and we'll be here to help get them answered. All right. Thank you so much. And you guys have a wonderful week.
Are your kids aiming for top Ivy League colleges? Are your kids aiming for top 1% scores in SAT or ACT? What is the biggest hurdle? English. To have a strong foundation in English, Test Prep Pundits presents long-term SAT, ACT English program with robust curriculum and experienced teachers. For grades 6 through 10, just $80 a month. Contact us, info@testpreppundits.com, or call us, 844-383-7844.
Fine diamond jewelry is now one click away. Maya Fine Jewels, a family legacy manufacturing their own jewelry since 1975. Shop online for lab-certified diamond jewelry at Indian prices. Visit your trusted family jeweler, Maya Fine Jewels, at 1315 Oak Tree Road, Islin, New Jersey. Shop online at mayafinejewels.com.
On her big day, she decides how it's going to be.
Get ready to make way for the brides of India.
With Malabar Gold and Diamonds.